A senior Trump administration official tells CBS News Iran has, in principle, agreed to broad deal parameters, including disposal of highly enriched uranium. Reuters, meanwhile, says the U.S. blockade of the strait is still in place. Both of those things are true at the same time, and they do not cancel each other out. This is Iran War Daily. Today we're tracking a 60-day truce framework, a reconstruction fund, and a uranium disposal claim that runs straight into Khamenei's reported directive. We're going to keep each of those on the record and source them carefully.
And while the diplomats are out here talking broad principles, Israel just damaged a hospital in South Lebanon. So no, the proxy track did not get the memo.
All right, let's get into it. This one's from the Times of Israel.
The U.S. and Iran are close to signing a deal involving a 60-day ceasefire extension, during which the Strait of Hormuz would be reopened, Iran would be able to freely sell oil, and negotiations would be held on curbing Iran's nuclear program, Axios reports, citing a U.S. official.
Reuters and Axios are both describing a draft MOU. 60 days, Hormuz open, no tolls, Iran clears its mines, and the U.S. lifts the port blockade and issues oil sale waivers. But Trump said publicly the blockade stays until there's a signature. So where we are right now is pretty simple. The draft exists on paper, and the interdiction is still running.
So Lloyd's war risk desks are pricing hulls through a strait that's supposed to be open in theory, but is still under U.S. interdiction in practice. That's not a truce, that's a term sheet.
And on the uranium piece, a senior U.S. official told CBS News Iran has, in principle, agreed to disposal of highly enriched uranium. But Reuters, citing two senior Iranian officials on May 22nd, reported Khamenei's directive that near-weapons-grade material does not leave Iran. Both attributions are on the record. One of them is wrong, or disposal still hasn't been defined.
3 days ago, I said you can't broker uranium custody in a one-page MOU when the supreme leader has ordered that the material doesn't move. And here we are, with the one-page MOU on the table and that directive still sitting there. In principle, agreed, is carrying a ridiculous amount of freight.
Here's CBS News.
A senior Trump administration official told CBS News that the U.S. and Iran are working toward a finalized agreement. The Iranians have, in principle, agreed to a deal that would include the disposal of highly enriched uranium, the official said, and there is a broad commitment on principles.
A senior Trump administration official told CBS News that Iran has, quote, in principle agreed to disposal of highly enriched uranium as part of a broad principles framework. That's one anonymous U.S. official's characterization, and it runs straight against what Reuters sourced from two senior Iranian officials on May 22nd. Khamenei's directive that near-weapons-grade material does not leave Iran. Both are on the record. They can't both be right.
And while the headline says broad agreement on principles, Trump posted on Truth Social that he told negotiators not to rush, and the blockade explicitly stays. Meanwhile, Fars News said Saturday that even if a deal happens, Hormuz stays under Iranian management. So the U.S. proposal says Hormuz reopens. Iran says Hormuz stays theirs. That's not a principles agreement. That's two press releases.
To put the uranium piece in context, Trump called the deal largely negotiated after a call with Middle Eastern leaders Saturday, and Rubio said details are coming shortly. Those are public statements by named officials. The disposal claim is still one anonymous source, and nobody on the record has explained the gap between disposal and Khamenei's directive from 3 days ago.
That phrase, in principle, is doing an enormous amount of work when Reuters, through two senior Iranian officials, says the supreme leader's standing order is that the uranium doesn't cross the border. Either that directive changed in 72 hours, or someone in the U.S. is describing an Iranian position that isn't actually there yet.
Quews News with Humaira Pamuk and Asif Shahzad.
The U.S. blockade on Iranian ships in the Strait of Hormuz would remain in full force and effect until an agreement is reached, certified, and signed, Trump wrote on Truth Social. Both sides must take their time and get it right, he added.
Reuters bylines. Pamuk and Shahzad, May 24. Trump posted on Truth Social that the U.S. blockade stays, quote, in full force and effect until an agreement is reached, certified, and signed. That gives you a named actor, a named platform, and a specific condition. 24 hours earlier, the same president said both sides had largely negotiated an MOU. Both statements are on the record.
So the MOU that was largely negotiated on Saturday is now something we shouldn't rush into on Sunday. And Tasnim, which runs editorial copy past the IRGC, says the U.S. is still blocking Tehran's demand for frozen funds release. That's not a side issue. That's the core of what Iran says it needs before anything moves.
And the Strait of Hormuz piece is the one to watch carefully. The Reuters-sourced 60-day truce proposal that circulated via the Times of Israel included Hormuz reopening. But Trump's Truth Social post says the blockade stays until a deal is certified and signed. Those are two different timelines attached to the same strait.
Lloyd's war risk desks are pricing hulls through a strait that's simultaneously under a U.S. naval blockade and on paper inside a truce framework. That's not a legal gray zone. That's a billing nightmare. And Reuters still lists the nuclear and hostage files as unresolved. One-page MOU, meet the issues that don't fit on one page.
Alex Marquardt, writing in Iran International.
Alex Marquardt reported that a U.S. proposal to Iran outlines phased sanctions relief, oil export waivers, and a reconstruction fund under a memorandum of understanding that would defer major disputes, including nuclear enrichment, to later talks toward a final deal.
Iran International. Alex Marquardt reporting, May 23. The U.S. proposal to Tehran includes phased sanctions relief, oil export waivers, and a reconstruction fund. And crucially, the MOU explicitly defers nuclear enrichment to later talks toward a final deal. That's the most granular account of the U.S. offer we've had all week, and it answers a question we've been tracking since Gharibabadi's full removal demand on May 20th.
So the U.S. spent roughly $29 billion on Operation Epic Fury, degrading Iranian infrastructure. And the opening bid on the diplomatic side now includes a reconstruction fund to rebuild it. I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm saying somebody needs to say that number out loud before Congress votes on anything.
The White House went on the record too. Iran must turn over its enriched uranium, and that's a red line. But the same MOU punts enrichment to later talks. Those are two statements from the same administration on the same day, and they are not the same posture.
And Iran International also has an exclusive today. Iran is demanding access to $12 billion in Qatar-held funds as a precondition just to sign the MOU. So before the reconstruction fund is even open, Tehran wants $12 billion unlocked. That's the actual negotiating floor, not the broad principles headline.
From the Straits Times.
The hospital's CEO, Dr. Salman Idebe, told AFP that around 40 patients were in the facility when the warning was issued, including 7 in intensive care. We took the patients to a safer location elsewhere inside the hospital, he said, adding that none were harmed but some 30 staff sustained minor injuries.
Lebanon's national news agency and AFP both have reporting on the ground. A hospital CEO told AFP directly that the Hiram facility and tire sustained severe damage. Shattered glass, ceiling panels gone, medical equipment destroyed. This is May 23rd, with an April 17th ceasefire still technically on paper.
The Israeli military issued evacuation warnings the night before and named Hezbollah facilities as the target. The hospital sits inside the 500-meter radius on their own maps. That's the IDF's geometry, not a contested attribution.
And here's the thread that matters for the week's arc. We've been tracking Israeli strikes on South Lebanon since the ceasefire extension. And this is the first time a hospital, a named institution, Hiram, with a CEO on the record to AFP, is the cited damage instead of a residential structure. That's a new institutional data point, and it lands on the same day U.S.-Iran negotiators are announcing broad principles agreed on a 60-day truce.
Right, so the diplomatic track is producing a framework, but the proxy track in Lebanon is not reading those memos. If the U.S.-Iran 60-day proposal doesn't include a specific Lebanon stand-down clause, then what exactly is Iran being asked to deliver on Hezbollah? Because Hezbollah is also listed as still keeping up attacks in this same report.
If you follow Iran War Daily for clear updates on fast-moving crises, try Ebola Watch, a daily DRC and Uganda Ebola outbreak briefing with case counts, border tracing, WHO vaccine news, and traveler guidance. Find it wherever you listen to podcasts. We've put links to every story from today's briefing in the show notes, so if there's one you want to dig into further, you'll find the source material there. That's Iran War Daily for today. This is a Lantern podcast.